Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to our program. Yes, Kriti, please begin. Yes, Kriti, please start.
Okay, ma'am. Kunal?
Yes, ma'am. A very good evening to one and all present here. I, Kunal, student, Department of Law, welcome you all to the World Environment Day celebrations. At the outset, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this panel discussion on Delhi's air quality control, a quest for viable solutions, organized by the Department of Law, Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Management Studies, in collaboration with Center of Excellence for Research on Clean Air, IIT Delhi, and Indian Council of Medical Research, National Institute for Implementation Research on Non-Communicable Diseases, Jodhpur. We are glad that for this panel discussion, Sarkar has joined hands with us as our partner in this discussion, along with the National Institute for Implementation Research on Non-Communicable Diseases. For today's panel discussion, we have amongst us Honorable Mr. Justice Swatantra Kumar, former Chairperson, National Green Tribunal. Honorable Mr. Justice S.K. Singh, Judicial Member, National Green Tribunal. Dr. Arun Sharma, Director at National Institute for Implementation Research on Non-Communicable Diseases under the Indian Council of Medical Research. Professor Sagnik De, Associate Professor from IIT Delhi. Mr. Sayandan Sarkar, Technical Specialist from the World Bank Group. Dr. Sandeep, Director at Control of Pollution Division under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Dr. Nand Kishore Garg ji, Founder and Chief Advisor at Maharaja Agrasen Technical Education Society and Chancellor, Maharaja Agrasen University, Himachal Pradesh. Shri Rajesh Gupta, Secretary, Maharaja Agrasen Technical Education Society. Professor G.P. Govil, Advisory at Maharaja Agrasen Technical Education Society. Dr. V.K. Khurana, Head, Department of Business Administration at Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Management Studies. We also have amongst us Professor S.K. Garg sir, Director General at Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Management Studies. Professor Ravi Kumar Gupta, Director, Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Management Studies. Professor Rajni Malhotra Dhingra, Principal at Department of Law. And Dr. Praveen Kumar Gupta, Head, Department of Law. Now, I would like to request our faculty convener, Ms. Kriti Johri, Department of Law, to present the introductory remarks for the event. Over to you.
Thank you, Kunal. Respected dignitaries, members from the management fraternity, faculty members of the Maharaja Agrasen family, and other faculty members from Sarkar and ICMR, and my dear participants. On behalf of Department of Law, I'm extremely delighted to extend a very warm welcome to each one of you to this panel discussion as part of our World Environment Day celebrations. The theme for today's Environment Day is ecosystem restoration, which means assisting in the recovery of ecosystems that have been degraded, as well as conserving those that are still intact. Certainly, our city has been hustling with various environmental challenges. However, in the last 2 months, the city undertook more than it could bear. Thousands lost their battle to the wrath of COVID-19 crisis. Around a year back, scientific researchers did alarm the city about the severity of the pandemic in cities already reeling under the poor air quality. Therefore, while conceptualizing this idea of panel discussion today, we at Department of Law, along with Sarkar and Indian Council of Medical Research, deemed it appropriate to formulate a consortium of scientific, technical, academic, and judicial experts deliberating together in churning out solutions that meet the desired results. Sarkar, as a center of excellence, has been fervently taking up and promoting scientific studies for clean air in the cities through a collaborative, constructive, and solution-oriented approach. Whereas ICMR, as a nodal institute of medical science research, is also copiously investigating the nexus of air pollution and the chronic respiratory illnesses. It is absolutely impossible to fathom a life without a clean air to breathe. A sustainable future calls for immediate steps to restore the degrading ecosystem of our city. So, what do? How do we take this mammoth challenge at hand? Solutions do exist, but have they been adequate? How do we proceed towards a sustainable tomorrow? All these questions will now be answered today through this knowledge sharing platform. We hope that all participants present here will have a great learning experience and will take home a comprehensive understanding of problems as well as solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I request our Director, Sir, Professor Ravi Kumar Gupta, to address the respected gathering this evening. Sir has over 25 years of experience in teaching and administrative domain. He has guided 15 MPhil and PhD research scholars and 6 more representative and research scholars in various other universities. Sir has various research papers and has edited 6 books to his credit. I would now request Sir to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. A very happy good afternoon to all the respected dignitaries invited in this online our program, which has been organized by Department of Law, our institute, Maharaj Agar Sain Institute of Business Studies, and also from our institute. Well, especially for the dignitaries who have joined today in this online program, it's my honor and duty to introduce and disseminate these facts before you that our institute, Maharaj Agar Sain Institute of Business Studies, has been established by our parent body, Maharaj Agar Sain Technical Education Society. Along with this institute, we have another engineering institute, and both are situated in a 9-acre campus in the sector 22, Rohini, New Delhi. And in very short span, it's very near locality, we have school also, and also we have one university, Maharaj Agar Sain University in Himachal Pradesh. Taken together, all the institutions, we have enrollment of more than 10,000 students and more than 1,000 faculty members and non-teaching staffs are the part of this mates family. Coming to this present institute, Maharaj Agar Sain Institute of Business Studies, we have a campus in this sector Rohini, which I have mentioned. It's a very beautiful campus with architecture and also environment friendly. We have a total enrollment of 2,460 in our institute and annual intake of 840. We have 5 courses. It's a BBA, BCom, BA Economics Honors, Journalism, BA in Journalism, and the law courses under the Department of Law. The event which is being organized by the Department of Law. We have 2 courses, 5-year integrated courses of BBA LLB and BA LLB. The Department of Law has initiated to organize this event on this World Environment Day. In our institute, we have the focus, we have this motto, and I say with very confidence that under the blessings of our management, along with all my faculty members, team, and the students, we have been able, and we are always consistent, doing the holistic development of our students through the teaching, of course, through the research activities, and through the various activities. And this initiative is also part of that, where we take our utmost duty and efforts to disseminate the knowledge to the students through various ways. This talk will definitely provide the utmost knowledge to our students of Department of Law and also the students who have joined from our different departments. And but this has been able, all the 5 dignitaries who have joined, and they would be having a discussion of a topic which is the need of the hour. I'm not from that area. Of course, we are eager to listen to all of you who have joined our institute, but online. Definitely, we would be having, and our further request to all of you also to invite our campus in offline also. that would be more palatable. But anyhow, you have joined, all of us, all of you, which you have joined in online program. It's a matter of very highest pride and great pleasure to me as an individual. Also, I take this words that definitely from the whole family of the MITS. The Department of Law is doing activities regularly from a different of all the varieties under the leadership of Professor Rajni Malhotra Dhingra, who is the presently principal Department of Law. Also, Dr. Parveen Gupta, head Department of Law, and faculty coordinator, Ms. Kriti. Also, the Department of Heads and senior faculties, they also get involved in all the activities. So, for all these things, I take pleasure to thanks from my side or to all the dignitaries who have joined in our online program. And also, I convey my thanks to everyone who have contributed, who have initiated to make it this program a success. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir, for your informative exposition. Now, I would like to request Dr. S.K. Garg, sir, Director General at Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Management Studies, to address the audience this evening. Sir has a rich experience of more than 42 years of teaching and 20 years of academic administration as principal of Deen Dayal Upadhyay College, University of Delhi. He has 16 research publications in international journals to his credit. He has many awards to his credit, including the Ambassador for Peace Award by the International Federation for World Peace. At present, he is serving as the Chancellor's nominee on the Executive Council of Cotton University, Assam, Chancellor's nominee on the Academic Council of Guwahati University, Assam, and UGC nominee of the governing body of Swanandhra College of Engineering and Technology, Narsapuram, Andhra Pradesh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kunal. Honorable Justice S.K. Singh, Justice Swatantra Kumar, Professor Sagnik Te, Mr. Sayantam Sarkar, Mr. Arun Sharma, and our own Dr. Nankishore Garg, the founder chairperson of Maharaja Agrasen Group of Institutions. The topic chosen for the celebration of this Environment Day, International Environment Day, is very appropriate. Delhi's air is amongst the most heavily polluted air anywhere in the world. This air pollution, I have been a student of chemistry, and I have taught a paper on air and water pollution for almost a decade to the undergraduate students. And the root cause of pollution is twofold. I mean, I'm just oversimplifying it. One, there is excess of carbon dioxide emission, then its absorption. And there is deficiency of oxygen emission, then its absorption, then its release. And it has so happened that the plants and trees which absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen, their number has been decreasing over the decades. And the animal species which absorb oxygen, which need oxygen for their survival. The latest example is of the pandemic, which has created a havoc in Delhi during the last 1 month, where the importance of oxygen was realized by one and all. The need for oxygen has increased manifold. So this imbalance is man-made. It needs to be restored. And this restoration is not going to be done overnight. It's a planned and long process, and it has to be a sustained process. Every one of us is doing our bit now, maybe a bit late. We are emphasizing on tree plantation, everywhere, in all colleges, in all schools, in all colonies. And if we plant 100 saplings, how many of them survive to grow into a tree? That probably need not any comment, not even 10%. The second major cause of air pollution is the particulate matter. The particulate matter is emitted either by the industries or by the vehicles. And of course, geography also has its role to play. You have dust storms, which is beyond anybody's control. But this vehicular pollution has been controlled to some extent after Delhi High Court's order insisting on use of ban on the use of diesel and instead of using the gas. So that has indeed created a decrease in levels of particulate matters. And industrialization, the construction work, all these things have also been responsible for increase in the concentration of particulate matters. These need to be checked. There are ample measures which the NGT has been imposing, insisting upon from time to time, but the compliance, partly because of human nature, the officials who are responsible for compliance are pliable and often succumb to pressures or greed. These are some of the reasons, I think, which are responsible for excessive air pollution in Delhi. And this can be experienced whenever you visit abroad, stay there for some time. And when you come back and come out of the airport, you feel as if you have entered into an envelope of smoke. Really, I have experienced this several times myself. So this Delhi's air quality control needs a very stringent check and very stringent measures. And I'm sure today's panel discussion will come out with something useful, something which is implementable, something which can be executed, not just the theoretical solutions. With these words, I welcome all the dignitaries to this panel discussion, and I'm sure this panel discussion will leave all of us enriched in tackling the problem of Delhi's air quality control. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir, for your thought-provoking words. Now, I would like to call upon our esteemed principal of Department of Law, Professor Rajni Malhotra Dhingra, to kindly introduce today's panel. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Puna. शुद्ध मन और शुद्ध पवन, शुद्ध मन और शुद्ध पवन कहीं खो गए हैं आधुनिकता के दौर में, कहीं खो गए हैं आधुनिकता के दौर में, ढूंढने के लिए इन्हें आओ मिल करें प्रयत्न, नहीं तो हम खो जाएंगे प्रकृति के प्रतिशोध में, प्रकृति के प्रतिशोध में. With this, before introducing the panel, I would like to highlight few facts regarding air quality of Delhi. Today, PM 2.5 level of Delhi was 144, and that is when there is less movement on the road, as sir told about the vehicular pollution, and less industrial activity. Even industrial activities are not taking place at all. Second, every year due to this pollution, around 2 million people dies only in India. And in Delhi alone, around 54,000 people die every year because of air pollution. Now, if we compare this data with the casualty caused due to the pandemic, then we find that air pollution is much more lethal than COVID-19 pandemic. Due to Corona, 344,101 people lost their lives. And through the air pollution, every year 2 million people dies. It is also to be noted that the air pollution is the 5th largest killer. And according to the survey done by WHO on 1,650 world cities, Delhi is the worst of any major city in the world. Poor quality of the air has already damaged the lungs of nearly 50% of the children living in Delhi. Now, I would like to highlight, even emphasize, that the aim of the panel discussion is not only to highlight the problems, but also to find out the solution and to prepare the generation of young people who will consider and put health of Mother Earth first than any other thing. Mind it that the development is required, but not at the cost of the lives of the people. Clean ways has to be invented. With this, now I will introduce the esteemed panel. We have with us Justice S.K. Singh. Since 2010, the National Green Tribunal is striving to promote environmental justice. Therefore, we could not think of a better way to begin our journey of seeking solution for clean air of the city than having leading authority from principal bench, NGT, to highlight the notable steps that has been taken by them so far to improve the quality index of air index of India in general and Delhi in particular. I welcome you, sir. We also have Professor Sagnik Day with us. He is a faculty coordinator at Sarka. He has been on board of various research programs and studies that are being undertaken to control Delhi air quality. He proposes that he will share with us his 5-point agenda based on his research expertise that will enable a clean and healthy air for the city. We also have with us Dr. Arun Sharma. He is the director, ICMR, NIIRNCD, Jodhpur. His current interests are environmental health, spatial epidemiology, chronic respiratory illness, and zoonotic diseases. He is currently working on 3 projects related to the epidemiology of chronic respiratory illness and air pollution. And this project is funded by the Department of Health, Research and Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India. His expertise on respiratory illness and air pollution. We also have Mr. Sanatan Sarkar. He has worked on air pollution and climate changes issue in the international, national, and subnational context for over a decade. He is currently working as a technical specialist with the World Bank India Quality Management Program team based in New Delhi and provides technical and strategic support towards implementation of the bank technical assistance program aimed to reduce air pollution in India. He has previously worked as a senior climate change advisor at the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office, New Delhi, where he focused on international climate negotiation and business leadership to promote low carbon growth in India. He has also worked with civil society organizations, including at Natural Resources Defense Council and the Tata Center for Development at University of Chicago, where he managed program on air quality and climate change. We also have with us Dr. Sandeep, Director of the Control of Pollution Division, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. He will discuss about the management of air quality in Delhi NCR region. So with this panel, I hope that for sure, as SK Garg sir told, that we would surely will reach to some viable solution and conclusion that can be implementable, and we will send our report naturally to the concerned authority. Thank you so much. Over to you, Kriti.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, we begin today's panel discussion. Our first panelist for today is Honorable Mr. Justice S.K. Singh, who is a judicial member at National Green Tribunal Principal Bench. In his long-term judicial career, Justice S.K. Singh has achieved many distinguished feats and has served as an observer in the landmark Ram Janmabhoomi case. He has also served as a judge at the Industrial Tribunal of Uttar Pradesh and has served as a chairman of the Oversight Committee, Uttar Pradesh, constituted by NGT. Sir, I now request you to please share your views with the participants today. Sir, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, yes. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadranu pashyanti, ma kasyit dukhabhag bhavet. Wishing all of you a very happy World Encounter Day. Let us be responsible for our environment. Thanks to all of you present and participating. My most respected Honorable Justice Swatantra Kumar Ji, Dr. Sagani Day, Dr. Arvind Kumar, Mr. Sharp Gaur, representative from the Ministry and World Bank. For most of history, man has had to fight nature to survive. In this century, he is beginning to realize that in order to survive, he must protect it. The earth will not continue to offer its harvest except with faithful stewardship. We cannot say we love the land and then take steps to destroy it for use by future generations. The earth is a fine place and worth fighting for. I believe in God. Only I spell it nature. We don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. The earth is about one country and mankind, its citizens. Everything in nature invites us constantly with what we are. This universe, a living being or creation of Almighty called Bhagwan, with 5 ingredient words. Bha, that means bhumi, land. Ga, that means sky, gagan. Va, that is vayu, air. And again, agni and non-need, water. When natural cycle of all 5 is disturbed due to mixing of poisonous or harmful material, it is in the nature of pollution. Water pollution is relatively new phenomena, and one can safely utter that it is solely the result of industrial waste and other waste which is thrown into the open sea and oceans. However, there is significant contribution of our poor sewerage system. It has stuffed up marine life. Admittedly, it does not have effect us in the short run, but it does affect in the long run. We have seen societies suffering from water disease because they have consumed filthy water. In research report, it was found that seas are now rising at 1/7 of an inch a year after 19th century. The world's ocean have already lost 1% of 3% of oxygen. From 2006 and onward, the ice melting from Greenland, Antarctica, and the world mountain glaciers has accelerated. Arctic snow cover has shrunk more than half since 1970s. Arctic sea ice, the annual low point is down almost 13%, 13% per decade. Marine animals are likely to decrease 15%. The report reveals that 40% of the rivers and 46% of lakes are too polluted for fishing, swimming, and aquatic life. 1/3 of topsoil in the world is already degraded, and with the current rate, most of the world topsoil could be gone within the next 60 to 100 years. The plastic, which is measured in use nowadays, is reported to start decomposition after 500 to 700, and it takes about 100 years. It is right time to make vigorous measures for making green environment for the people. Otherwise, pollution will continuously and adversely affect the human health, causing adverse effect on society and national economy. We should think and research on points of capturing, storage, and reuses, if required, of carbon dioxide, use of wasted heat, and desalination of water. The necessity to maintain the environment, a balance has to be struck between the two interests, where the commercial venture or enterprises would bring in results which are far more useful for the people, difficulty of a small number of people has to be bypassed. The comparative hardship have to be balanced, and the inconvenience and convenience and benefit to a larger section of the people has to get primary or comparatively lesser hardship. Now, the pollution is pervasive, causing massive public health and environment crisis. The economic cost of fossil fuel, air pollution alone is estimated to be more than 10,700 billion, that is 5.4% of the country's annual GDP. An estimated 1 million deaths each year and 9,08,000 births are attributed to air pollution from fossil fuel in India. The impacts are devastating, including the degree of particulate matter, concentration in the air, reduction in life expectancy, and high cost that the state is incurring to resolve the crisis. The main source of air pollution in Delhi and around NCR region are vehicle exhaust, heavy industry, power generation, small scale industries, brick lanes, suspended dust on the roadside and vehicles. We see that after Delhi went into lockdown in the wake of pandemic, the pollution level decreased drastically, and the air quality index returned to the satisfactory level. Before this, air was cleanest on 29th of September 19 when the AQI measure was 60. The first 3 phases of the national lockdown, which started on March 25, led to a large decline in air pollution. In April 2020, the concentration of PM10 fell to 71.7, less than half of the concentration observed during the same month over the previous 3 years. But shortly after the lockdown, restrictions were eased after the day a spike was recorded, and records indicate that pollution in Delhi pattern started climbing again. The city experienced relatively cleaner air during the COVID-19 lockdown as industrial activity came to halt. Now, assessment with relate to industrial pollution by the Central Pollution Control Board shows that the national capital is home to and surrounded by highly polluted industrial clusters that do not meet limits on air, water, or soil emission. The Najafgarh rain basin in Delhi, which includes the Anand Prabhat, Narayana, Okhla, Wazirpur industrial area, is the second most polluted cluster in India. Its air and water are the critical category in toxic contents, and its soil very severe. With as many as 3,182 industrial located across Delhi National Capital Region. Industrial pollution that is reported about 18.6% to the poor air quality within the zone. The transport sector is the main source of PM2.5 emission in Delhi. Trucks and tractors generate 9% emissions, 7% from two-wheelers, 5% from three-wheelers, 3% each from car and buses, 1% from light commercial vehicles. In all, these vehicles are also responsible 41% of the total pollution load in Delhi. The number of vehicles as reported in March 19, including over 7 million two-wheelers, while the annual growth rate of vehicles dropped from 8.13% to 5.18% later on in 19. Construction activities generate high level of pollution, and the contribution as reported by a committee of the DPCC, that's about 30%. And in this way, Delhi regions could see 9.4 years added to their life expectancy if pollution were reduced to meet guidelines set by the World Health Organization. Fine particles are also posing greatest health risks as they are minuscule and can get deep into a person's lungs and blood streams. Long-term exposure to fine particulate matter has been linked with an increased rate of chronic bronchitis, reduced lung function, increased mortality from lung cancer and heart diseases. The Center for Chest Surgery, Gangaram Hospital, Delhi, has observed a disturbing trend in young non-smoking individuals getting diagnosed for lung cancer for those who were admitted to the center. PM10 are particularly dangerous because these are particles in the air with a diameter of less than 10 micrometer, small enough to pass through the throat and nose and enter the lungs. The economy costing more than 1.28% of GDP due to the air pollution, while air pollution from burning fossil fuel results in the loss of 5.4% of the country's India's GDP. It also causing the disturbance in the ozone gas. According to the air quality index, which is generally released every year by the CPCB, ozone is emerging as a dominant pollutant among the PM, especially in the Delhi and NCR regions. Then it requires that the restrictions on non-essential movement in the first few months, which was in the COVID-19 period, should be taken as account for controlling the pollution in the city. Now, if we examine the action taken on these points and examine the UI, which is to be by experts of all of you, 250 good and 51 100 satisfactory. And if it is exceeds 101, then that is moderately polluted, and after 200, that is very poor and severe also. During the period 2020, the parameter and the report is submitted by the CPCB report that it was PM10 was reported to be 322 in the month of January 2020, and in the month of November 2020, it was 312, while in December it was 316. The adverse effect of this extreme level of air pollution is spared no one, either young, old, infirm, and even future generation. One source causing high level of pollution within the area region NCR, that is the brick industries. And as per report, in the Uttar Pradesh, total number of brick kilns within the NCR region in operation reported to be 2,216, while after repeated correction from the NGT, they have converted the technology from old pattern to zigzag technology, that is the 1,024. Similarly, in Haryana, there are 2,163 number of bricks in operation within the NCR region, and similarly in Rajasthan, 255 brick kilns are in operation. And after hearing and calling the report from expert body in one of the matter, the tribunal directed that brick kilns which have already been converted to zigzag technology may only be allowed to operate subject to compliance of all the applicable environmental notifications, setting guidelines, conditions of the consent to operate granted by respective state pollution control board, with special reference to control of fugitive dust emissions. And further, new brick kilns be allowed only to operate in NCR region if they follow the guidelines issued by the CPCB in November 2020. Further, direction was also issued with the permission to operate the brick kilns in the winter month must be subjected to certain restrictions, and this is also applicable to operation of industries. Second thing is causing the pollution in the area, that is a highway dust pollution. And in matter of 386 of 2016, the issue for consideration was the remedial action for protection of environment along the highways. The step include green cover to minimize the impact of dust pollution on account of traffic, leaving of space on both sides of highways, for tree plantation and expansion, preventing direct access to the highway without bylanes, exit routes, and regulating the opening of access to the building directly from the highways. Granting environmental clearance by MOEFCC must ensure that an effective monitoring mechanism exists to ensure compliance of requisite safeguards, including the plantation on the roadside and keeping such roadside free from encroachment up to specified distances as prescribed by the CPCB guidelines. National Highway Authority must give undertaking of responsible level officers to take ownership of maintaining environmental norms instead of taking a plea that it was not their basic responsibility and shifting the responsibility to the contractors. And then comes the mining, causing air pollution. And utter disregard to environment has placed Delhi in an unenviable position of being the world's third heaviest, most polluted city. For the reasons, the mechanical stone crushers, we have in the matter directed that these mechanical stone crushers established operating in Lalkuma, Anya Prabhat, Rajkauri, Tolkabad, and any other area of the Union Territory of Delhi shall stop operation immediately, and no stone crushers shall be permitted to operate. The mechanical stone crushers established operating in Surajkund, Lakhanpur, Kottan, Gurukul, areas of Haryana shall stop operating function with effect from immediately. In MCFR matter, Honorable the Supreme Court of India has also observed that while conducting a study of environmental problems of Aravalli Hills and preparation of action plan for restoration of environmental quality of Gurgaon district, the Center Mine Planning and Design Institute had intelligently noted that in the Aravalli Hills, large number of activities, operations of stone crushers and deforestation besides other activities are causing environmental degradation. The mines of granite, marble, slates, quartzite are no less damaging than the others, especially when the processing is taken into consideration. Now coming to the dust pollution, which is said to be contributing more than 43% of air pollution. Now, in one of the matter, Direction was sued for taking care of the road dust, let water sprinklers, dust suppressors be used on the roads. An IT expert has suggested about the appropriate water pressure for the sprinklers. At what water pressure should be sprinkled so as to reduce the pollution and dust so that it does not aid to the any pollution. And then further, the noise pollution. Undoubtedly, the freedom of speech and right to expression are fundamental rights. But all of you know that the rights are not absolute. Nobody can claim a fundamental right to create noise by amplifying the sound of his speech with the help of loudspeakers. While one has a right to speech, others have a right to listen or decline to listen. Nobody can be compelled to listen, and nobody can claim that he has the right to make his voice trespass into the ears or mind of others. Nobody can indulge into verbal aggression if anyone increases his volume. And in this way, there is certain provisions in noise pollution regulations and section 4, 5, and 5A. You already know all these things. Now, we should place that don't pollute water, land, air, and environmental, because once it is lost forever. An ecosystem which are damaged requires restoration by growing trees, greening cities, rewilding gardens, changing diets, or cleaning up rivers and coasts. This is the generation that can make peace with the nature. If you pollute the water, you can never expect to find clean drinking water. Save the environment and save our planet. Never blame the environment, but always blame yourself for not taking care of the most precious gift of God given to us. I again wish all of you happy Environmental World Environment Day, and let us give our coming generations a healthier and happier environment to have a beautiful life. We should do our duties, otherwise we remember that in one of the literature, Kamayani Jaishankar Prasad has wrote down that हिमगिरी के उत्तुंग शिखर पर बैठ सिला की शीतल छां, एक पुरुष भीगे नयनों से देख रहा था प्रलय प्रवाह, नीचे जल था, ऊपर हिम था, एक तरल था, एक सघन, एक तत्व की ही प्रधानता, कहो उसे जड़ या चेतन. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to be with you people all, to listen to you, have some knowledge and gathering some knowledge which will be useful for me in the future working. Thank you all of you. Jai Hind.
Jai.
Jai Hind. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your deep insights on the subject and then guiding us with the possible solutions for curbing the pollution in the city. Our next panelist for today's discussion is Professor Dr. Arun Sharma, who is currently serving as the director at the National Institute for Implementation Research for Non-Communicable Diseases, Jodhpur, under the Indian Council of Medical Research. Prior to this, Dr. Arun Sharma has served as a professor at the Department of Community Medicine, University College of Medical Sciences of University of Delhi. He has been awarded the Hubert Humphrey Fellowship to study epidemiology, biostatistics, and mental health at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health at United States of America. He has more than 60 research publications to his credit. I now request Sir to kindly address the gathering with his rich and knowledgeable expertise. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kriti ji. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of this event, the Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Management Studies Department of Law and Center of Excellence for Research on Clean Air, CERCA, IIT Delhi, for joining hands with this institution, that is ICMR's National Institute of Implementation Research on Non-Communicable Diseases, on bringing about a discussion on a very important topic. Now, I would like to also mention that being in Jodhpur, I should not be treated as an outsider as far as the problems of Delhi are concerned, because I have spent 28 years of my life in Delhi, NCR to be precise, living in Ghaziabad and Noida and working in Sahadra. So one of the most polluted areas of National Capital Region of Delhi. And it's very recently, not even 2 months that I have moved to Jodhpur. That's also temporarily, but definitely Delhi remains the first love and probably the first responsibility as a doctor, as a researcher, or you can say as an environmental, for my passion with environment. Improving the air of Delhi is definitely a priority for me also, as it is for everyone who has gathered here. Having said that, I also want to emphasize that the problem of air pollution, which we are so concerned about in Delhi, is not restricted to Delhi. All of you will agree that out of the world's 100 most polluted cities, India's 30 cities figure there. That means that what is true for Delhi is equally true maybe for Jodhpur, maybe for Lucknow, maybe for Mumbai, and we can go on counting, because pollution is a big challenge as a whole for our country. And the reason that we can count these cities is that we have measured the level of pollution in these areas. The rest of the area, how bad or how good they are, we probably don't know, because we have not instituted the similar devices for measuring the level of pollution in smaller cities in our rural areas. We will be living in a myth's world if we believe that the pollution is restricted only to the urban areas. The pollution is as serious a threat and a problem in the urban area of the world, particularly in the developing countries and in the LMICs, where the environment is not as healthy we have been able to make as we want it to be. Having said that, my today's topic for presentation was to think of air pollution in contextualizing with respect to health, and what best can be an example than to talk about COVID-19, the disease that has taken us by surprise. It has shocked us, and we not only as a country, but as an entire humanity, struggling with to come to terms with and probably win over it. And it is interesting. It will be interesting to see how air quality is intertwined with the problem of COVID-19, not only in Delhi, not only in India, but as a natural phenomenon. Friends, I would like to share a few slides with you to share certain data or certain facts, which I thought will be relevant, and it will help you understand the context of the topic in a better way. So kindly let me do that. Just confirming if my slides are visible. Is the slide visible? Kriti, if you can confirm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it's visible.
Thank you. So coming to the issue of COVID-19 pandemic and air pollution, let me take you back to not a very recent past. December 2019, when we first came to know about the existence of SARS-CoV-2 virus, and then when the all hell started breaking loose on the world, the first information and the first knowledge we had was that COVID-19 is a disease which spreads by droplets, and these droplets, when they gather on a surface, they are likely to contaminate the surface, whether it is an object of desire, like a food item, or it's just a simple packet, a parcel delivered, or even the basic surfaces like tables, chairs, which we are using. Or there were scary videos where it was shown that in the lift, the buttons which we are operating while using an elevator may be the source of contamination. And then our efforts began basically to take care of that. Now, when science started looking into the issue of COVID-19, we came to know that an epidemic model based only on respiratory droplets and close contact was not able to explain the regional differences in spreading the COVID-19 disease. So we had to look beyond that theory of contact transmission and droplet transmission. So the idea emerged that virus being such a small microparticle having a dimension which is 1/10 or even less than that of a PM 2.5 particle, which is of concern for the air quality managers and air quality thinkers, that hundreds of such virus particles can actually get deposited on a PM 2.5 and PM 10 particle, and therefore can remain suspended in the air for a long time, and thereby cause inhalation of this virus along with this suspended respiratory particle of PM 2.5 size or lower. And therefore, the theory started gaining ground that like other respiratory diseases, COVID-19 may also be an airborne disease and not restricted to be a droplet nuclei related issue or a surface transmitted infection. In the month of June 2020 itself, a large number of scientists from all over the world had written an open letter to the Director General of World Health Organization, requesting him to declare COVID-19 as an airborne infection. But of course, there were certain controversies, and the conclusive evidence at that time was not available. But the research continued, and now we are confidently aware of the fact that aerosolization that occurs of the particles in the air are indeed carriers of virus, and therefore it has the potential to carry the virus even to the distances as far as 30 feet in the air, which even the government of India recently made a public announcement that yes, the disease is airborne and the particle can be found as far as 10 meters away from a potentially infected COVID-19 patient, thereby justifying and like legitimizing the argument or the evidence that yes, COVID-19 is an airborne infection. Now, this information has other scientific evidence that emerged from time to time in different areas. The first time we thought about it was when the study was conducted in China, in the Hubei province itself, and it was found the disease was being transmitted from one set of diners in a restaurant who were sitting away from the infected group of people who were dining in the same restaurant, and they were in the line of an air conditioner's movement of air, which was actually carrying the air from the infected diners to the non-infected diners, thereby starting the theory that it could be airborne. After that, a study was conducted in Nebraska University Hospital, USA, where actually the virus particles were isolated from the wards where patients were kept at a distance of more than 20 feet from where the patients were actually being kept. And the biggest evidence emerged from Italy, which was one of the European countries that was devastated in terms of the progress of the disease and the number of deaths that occurred. And the researchers from Italy showed that in the northern Italy, the Lombardy and the Po Valley region, which are industrial area, are the most polluted area of Italy, and they had the largest number of cases and deaths because of COVID-19. This was way back. The paper was published in as early as in August 2020, giving an evidence that yes, COVID-19 is an airborne disease and air pollution has got a very significant role to play in it. And subsequently, there was enough evidence which showed that 15% increase in COVID-19 mortality was predicted per microgram per meter cube increase in the PM2.5 levels. These are mathematical models, but they definitely are substantial evidence. The way the disease has spread in the second wave in India, we can also understand that this is certainly not due to droplet or the contact. It has to be an airborne condition that we have got so many cases, so many deaths in such a limited period of time. Now, in Indian context, the other important aspect, taking the positive side, though the disease can never be a positive phenomenon in our lives, but the disease resulted in a massive lockdown in the country. I'm sure Dr. Sagnik will talk more about it, but just to touch upon the context that in India, the lockdown that happened as a result of COVID-19 saw a reduction in PM2.5 levels to the tune of 60% and 34% respectively in Delhi and Mumbai, apparently the two most polluted cities in the country. And in high-density population hubs, that is like Noida, Gurugram, and Jaipur, levels of PM2.5 reduced by 50% because of the lockdown. Right. So what does that mean in terms of our understanding? That the air pollution has been created in a man-made situation. We are responsible for because of anthropogenic activities, industrialization, urbanization, and come what may in adding to the pollution of the earth. And once those phenomena are taken out of our urban living or lifestyle, we can hope and think of reducing pollution to an acceptable level, which say WHO described as 20 microgram per cubic meter, or our own national ambient air quality standards pegged at 60 microgram. Friends, unfortunately, in Delhi, even on the best of the days, the 60 microgram per cubic meter PM2.5 level is a dream. It's not a reality. That means we have never been able to touch the national ambient air quality standard levels in a year, except for this period of lockdown. Now, so how does air pollution reduction going to help us? It's obviously going to reduce the COVID-19 infection rate because it's airborne, and there, as a consequence, the COVID-19 related mortality is going to reduce. It has already been established that air pollution is responsible for different type of cardiovascular diseases like myocardial infarction, acute cardiovascular events, and there's a specific condition, STEMI. STEMI is ST segment elevation-based myocardial infarction. Sorry about using this technical term, but these are the things these are the disease conditions which have been found to be directly linked to an air quality issue. That is, high pollution is going to lead to death or mortalities because of these disease conditions. So the appeal for reducing the air pollution in cities becomes stronger. Now, having said that, I also want to emphasize here that we conducted a research in Delhi in the year 2018 to 2017 to 2019, where we surveyed about 40,000 population of Delhi in 8,000 households. And we wanted to see what is the distribution of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease in the city. It's a common disease which is caused by either smoking or because of air pollution. I'm not sharing the findings of the study, but we just want to inform you that we found that in the slum areas of the city, that is near the Mansarovar Park metro station in East Delhi, and in the industrial area of in the West Delhi, not the Mayapuri, the Narela, sorry, not Narela, the Narayana industrial area in West Delhi. This is where the maximum concentration of cases were found, thereby justifying the fact that these respiratory illnesses occurred more in poorly ventilated households in the slum area, or people who are living in an industrial area, which happens to be obviously more polluted. So we have evidence of air pollution causing diseases over a period of long term, that is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which develops after continuous exposure for 20 to 30 years. Or we have acute events like myocardial infarction and sudden death due to heart attack occurring as an acute event due to air pollution. So the relationship between air pollution and the burden of disease and mortality is now established beyond doubt. So therefore, the time has come when we have to think of measures used for reducing air pollution. And lockdown has shown us that it is possible to live with relatively less pollution, with relatively doing anthropogenic activities which are less polluting, and still it is possible to survive. I'm not going into the philosophical debate of development and urbanization, but yes, for basic living, we have to ensure first that we get good air quality to live. All other things will become secondary, because if quality of life due to health is not good, then what good are the other resources or the luxuries which we are trying to accumulate by strengthening our urbanization, industrialization, and other matters of desire which are physical in nature, and on the other side causing so much of pollution to the society. So I will leave with a philosophical note that there has been a birth, the earth is healing itself during the lockdown period. Nature is regaining its lost ground on the planet. And certainly human beings are appreciating these positive changes in the environment. But the question remains, will this COVID-19 outbreak be able to teach us a permanent lesson and make us more responsible toward preserving the nature of our planet, and let it be more livable? Or the wave of this good outcome will die down with the dying of COVID-19 and back to business as usual. This is a caveat. This is a warning. Thank you very much. Thank you for patient listening.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for highlighting the nexus of the air pollution and the improvised health standards in the air quality management system that we require for our city. Moving further, our next panelist amongst us is Professor Sagnik Dey from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. His research interests are air quality, climate change, and health nexus, as well as the remote sensing of Earth's climate system. He is an international collaborator and a science team member of the NASA's upcoming multi-angle imager for aerosol satellite mission. He has served as an expert of the member of the WHO's initiative on global platform on air quality and health. Professor Dey also holds Fulbright Nehru Academic and Professional Excellence Fellowship to his credit. He is also a member of the WHO Southeast Asia Non-Communicable Diseases Regional Technical Advisory Group. Sir, I request you to now address the gathering today.
Yeah. Am I audible, Kriti?
Yes, sir. Indeed, sir.
Okay, thanks. So thanks for inviting me for this panel discussion, and it's a wonderful initiative. I will come straight away to my 5-point agenda, which I believe is very, very important for clean air in Delhi. So my first point is what Professor Sharma raised, that is that airshed management or a regional approach. We all know that, we do not have an adequate ground-based monitoring of air pollution in the country. Particularly, we are not measuring air pollution in the rural areas or smaller cities. So we are putting together a national database for the Central Pollution Control Board using satellite data calibrated against available reference grade monitoring from CPCB. So what you are seeing here in this particular map is 20-year average PM 2.5. And you can see that this entire corridor of the Indo-Gangetic Plain from the Punjab to West Bengal is where the annual PM 2.5 level is more than 80 microgram per cubic meter. That means the pollution level is more than double the Indian standard. And it clearly tells you that you cannot really achieve clean air just by doing efforts in your city. So Delhi is just lying in this entire pool of pollutions, and pollution just moves back and forth within this corridor. And that is why unless we have a coordinated effort within this entire region, it is very difficult to achieve solutions. When you think about Delhi, we see that Delhi has two major pollution cycles. One comes around October and November, and then another one comes in December to January, which is shown by the blue line here. However, as I mentioned, that if you look at the annual concentration, it is very clear that it's an year-round problem. But all the discussion, all the debate is focused only on these two periodic episodes. So this is the Diwali time when it's coincided with the stubble burning and all. And then in the winter time when meteorology is highly unfavorable and then the air pollution level gets to severe or critical, we only talk about it. So what I'm trying to make here, I'm trying to make the point here is that air pollution in Delhi is an year-round problem and it's a regional problem. So efforts have to be year-round. And again, if we look into the studies done by IASA, with which we are collaborating, where they found out that if you look into Delhi, which is here, that how much pollution in Delhi is contributed by the emissions from within the state, so which is roughly 50%. That means the 50% of Delhi's pollution comes from outside Delhi, and even a fraction is coming from outside India. What does it mean? It means, and so this is a classic half-filled, half-empty kind of argument. That means looking at this, one should not say that, okay, since 50% is coming from outside, so Delhi cannot win the battle without regional corporations. Yes, regional corporation has to be there, but also at the same time, Delhi must reduce its local emissions. Whatever reduction we achieve in Delhi will definitely help reducing Delhi's air pollution. In fact, we are working on developing ward by ward level pollution maps of Delhi to understand which are the local hotspots in Delhi. So you can see actually this is an example for 2018. You can see that across Delhi also there is very large variations. And you can actually identify which wards are highly polluted. And it clearly means that in these wards, municipal wards, you have additional local sources. And that is why you have such large variation across the wards. So the first important point I'm trying to make here is that along with the local emission reductions, we should have a coordinated approach in this entire corridor of the Indo-Gangetic Plain. My second point is that prioritization and accountability. We have the National Clean Air Program, which has outlined, which has mandated, in fact, all the non-attainment cities to come up with an implementation plan for clean air actions. In fact, every state has done. So this very interesting review has actually captured that across various states, the clean air action plans, what are the typical sources the clean air action plans are focusing on? So if you look into Delhi, you can see that the Delhi's clean air action plan is mostly geared towards reducing the transport and this color, which is the industry. So these are the two big chunks. Now also, at the same time, we need to keep in mind that all these different sources, what even Justice Singh mentioned, like transport, industry, waste burning, residential, construction, road dust and all, the way we implement things are very, very different. The way we try to reduce transport emissions is very different than the tools and techniques required to reduce the industrial emissions. So that means that it's not the responsibility of one agency. And again, if you see for Delhi, what happens is that certain action plans has to be implemented by Pollution Control Board. Certain action plans have to be implemented by the urban local bodies, certain by the Transport Department, and then some, certain plans have to be, as the boards. What we do not see in these action plans under the National Clean Air Program is prioritizations. All the action plan is just a wish list that we want to reduce pollution, and then the solution is given. However, given the limited resource, what we should do is that we need to prioritize. And how do we prioritize? Obviously, we have to see ease of implementation. That means which plan can be easily implemented, coordinated between various departments. We have to also see the cost of implementation and vis-a-vis the expected benefit once the plan is implemented. That means the benefit in terms of the reduced air pollution load and improved health. So for this, actually, SARCA is working with World Bank and EASA to come up with an air quality management plan for the entire Indo-Gangetic Plains. And I think unless we prioritize and make some organizations accountable if the action plan is not implemented correctly, it's very difficult to achieve anything within the given timeline. My third point is that we should indulge in evidence-based policy. What I'm showing here is that how air pollution, particularly PM2.5, has changed in Delhi for the last 20 years or so. So this is an anomaly scale. So each year the pollution is shown, in anomalous term with respect to the 20-year average. So you can see that in the beginning of this century, the pollution started increasing, and then Delhi implemented, or Delhi shifted its public transport to CNG. And very clearly after this, we can see there is a reduction in PM2.5 in Delhi. And I must say that, in that time, Delhi has no PM2.5 measurement, ground-based monitoring. So this time series is actually extracted from our satellite-based data, but good enough to show you the changes happened in Delhi. And then again, pollution levels started increasing in Delhi from 2008 and 9. And various important policy decisions which were taken in Delhi are also mentioned along the timeline. And you can see that, the pollution level reached a peak around 2013 to 2016, when a lot of initiatives were taken in Delhi, including the implementation of the Graded Response Action Plan. And after 2016 and 17, you can see there is a steady decrease in the air pollution in Delhi. Obviously, 2020, this large district is definitely, as a part of the lockdown, a sudden reduction in emission during the lockdown. But if you focus between 2017 to 19, you see that actually in Delhi, overall PM2.5 level has decreased. However, there is no framework currently to understand whether this improvement in air quality in Delhi has happened because of the actions taken by the Delhi government or the local, urban bodies, or the state government, or the national, government, or whether the meteorology has changed or any action is taken in the upwind states of Haryana and Punjab, and that has benefited Delhi. Unless we really understand the efficacy of various interventions measures, that means we need to understand where my plan of addressing the transport pollution is working or not. I need to understand whether my plan to curb emissions from the industrial sector is working or not. Unless we reach at that level, we cannot really understand what is causing these fluctuations very well and link it to the success or failure of a policy. And I think this is very, very important, and this cannot be achieved just by measuring total PM2.5. So what we should do is that we should update periodically emissions from every source. We should do periodic source apportionment studies and try to understand whether the sectoral contributions are changing. The lockdown experience, what Professor Sharma also mentioned, clearly told us that it is possible to reduce air pollution in Delhi by reducing emissions at the sources. Recent efforts of putting out smoke tire, I don't think, in my opinion, is very feasible solutions. The simple reason is that once the pollution is out there, it's very, very challenging to clean the air. And it's really it's really costly affairs. So my fourth point is the stakeholder engagement. What do you mean by stakeholder engagement is that, when we take a policy, we need to ensure that citizens or the recipients of the policy are on board. So we have to take citizens as a part of the solutions, be it promoting public transport or switch to clean fuel or gradual transition to e-mobility, or even curbing organized or non-organized sources. We need actually engaging with the users, end users, as well as the stakeholders for each of these different sectors. My fifth point is that capacity building. In the country today, we do not have adequate capacity when you talk about air quality management. There are state-of-the-art monitorings. Particularly, there are techniques available which can provide real-time source apportionment. Very, very few people in the country can actually do that. Then we need to actually have capacity to run dispersion model or chemical transport models to understand different scenarios, doing source apportionment studies, and also exposure and epidemiological modeling. And we need actually this kind of capacity development, both at the institutional level and also for the early career scientists. So SARCA, Center of Excellence, from where I belong to, we are engaged in all these aspects. We are involved in providing science, filling the data gap, providing feasible solutions. We are looking into the efficacy of the interventions as part of the policy dimensions. And we are also involved in various outreach programs, creating awareness, community engagement, and capacity building. And you can see that for the last several years, SARCA has been engaged with various governmental and international agencies working on the clean air. So my concluding remark is that we must learn from the international experience and act very aggressively. Because any delay in action will definitely cost our future generations. So we should not remain in denial and start working. And I personally believe that implementation can be easily achieved if we should be willing to act, and we should create the kind of awareness that air pollution becomes a household debate, and so that the government really implements it and then take entire community along with the solutions. So I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, we require a very robust policy, federal policy that can help us with managing the air problem in the northern region. And ultimately, that is going to help the air quality of Delhi. Thank you. Next, the panelist with us is Mr. Sayantan Sarkar, who is Technical Specialist, Environment, Natural Resources, Blue Economy at the World Bank Group. Mr. Sarkar has worked on air pollution and climate change issues in the international, national, and subnational context for over a decade. He's currently working as a technical specialist at the World Bank's Air Quality Management Program Team India, based out in New Delhi, and provides technical as well as strategic support towards the implementation of Bank's Technical Assistance Program aimed to reduce the air pollution in India. He has also previously worked as a senior climate change advisor at the United Kingdom's Foreign and Commonwealth Office, New Delhi, where he focused on the international climate negotiations, catalyzing political and business leadership to promote low carbon growth in India. Sir has also worked with the civil society organizations, including the National Resources Defense Council and the Tata Center for Development at the University of Chicago, where he managed programs on air quality and climate change. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Kriti. I hope I'm audible and you can see my screen.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we can.
Thank you very much for the confirmation. I would also like to convey my regards and thanks to the complete organizing committee for having me as a panelist at this esteemed panel discussion on this very momentous day of the World Environment Day. I'd like to wish everyone attending here as well a very warm and happy World Environment Day. So before I begin my talk today, I would just present a very quick snapshot of what the World Bank does on air quality management. What has our engagement been? So the World Bank has, over the past 3 decades or even longer, been supporting various countries to develop plans for air quality management and also supporting implementation of those plans. So there are three primary mechanisms through which we engage with various countries. The first being technical assistance, through which we provide technical and analytical support along with capacity building support to the host countries. We are very proud to say that at the moment we have a existing technical assistance in India, which has been ongoing with the support of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, which is focusing primarily on the Indo-Gangetic Plains and more specifically in the states of Bihar, West Bengal and UP. The second mechanism is lending, through which the World Bank provides loans, substantial loans to countries that wants to implement programs or projects or technologies to reduce air pollution. The bank has been doing this in various parts of the world, including in Central America, Latin America, and of late more so in Southern Asia, in the Southern Asian countries, which has really emerged as a hotspot of air pollution across the world. And the third and final mechanism that we have is knowledge sharing, through which we build platforms to bring together researchers, public policy makers, decision makers, as well as civil society organizations and the media to create ideas and enable peer-to-peer exchange. So on that note, I'll move into the key topic for my presentation today, which is air pollution as a transboundary challenge. Now, the brief that I was given for this talk was to focus on international experiences. And I think Dr. Sagnik's presentation actually laid out a very good platform for me to build from. So I'll definitely focus on the international experiences, but I'll also towards the end of the presentation circle back to India and try to make a rationale of why a transboundary approach also makes sense for India. So as many eminent speakers before me have already conveyed and made the submission that air pollution is truly one of the most pressing environmental and health challenges that we face globally, particularly so in India and in Delhi in particular in the context of today's discussions. So traditionally, air pollution has often been seen as a local or a hotspot challenge. And as a result, many times the approaches or the measures that are taken to address air pollution have been very localized. This could be effective in the short run, where you have to tackle immediate or peak episodes or emergency episodes of air pollution. However, in the longer run, it makes sense to move to a shared regional or transboundary approach. I'll come to it why. So air pollution is basically a very dynamic challenge, right? It spans across geographies and is influenced by a number of factors like meteorology and topography. Pollution generating from one source in one location can have a significant impact on pollution in another location downwind of that direction. Hence, it becomes imperative and very important for policymakers to clearly understand the atmospheric transport of pollutants, as well as the chemical transformation that pollutants go through, and also understand the health impacts that air pollution has across an airshed and not just at a particular hotspot. Countries which have successfully tackled air pollution, and I'll share some examples, have done so by concentrating on sustained transboundary approaches that help in decoupling growth from air pollution. Internationally, there are lots of examples of how countries have come together bilaterally or even through multilateral cooperation models, and also through operationalizing airsheds within a country to tackle air pollution. The first example that I'm going to share today is from the state of California in the United States. California, as you know, has been one of the most developed parts globally and also in the United States. And it was really plagued by severe episodes of smog and air pollution since the early 40s. So to tackle these, there were some counties and cities that were taking individual actions, but this was not enough. And the state came to a realization through research and public consultation that more needs to be done. So in 1947, California Air Act was passed, which allowed more than one county to come together to form a joint or collaborative effort towards reducing air pollution. Although there were some limitations to this as well. And as research and development later showed the state authorities, there were actually two factors that were missing even in this approach of combining one or two counties. This was basically first the fact that they were missing out on major sources that were outside of these sort of counties that were taking individual action. And also the fact that a lot of actions that these individual counties were taking were primarily on stationary sources, and that they had completely completely missed out on accounting for mobile sources being transportation, which had a major role in emitting SOx and NOx, which were the major constituent of the smog in many parts of the state back in the 1940s and subsequently in the 50s and early 60s. So to tackle this, the Californian government then brought about the Air Resources Act in the year 1967 that helped in demarcation of something called air basins. Today, there are 15 air basins in the state of California, which are formed primarily taking into account similarity in air pollution levels, as well as topographic and meteorological features. And an institution called the CARB, or the California Air Resources Board, was also established parallelly through the Air Resources Act to come up as the key institution responsible and accountable for managing air quality through the state. CARB was provided with a number of regulatory authorities. It was given the charge of creating or setting standards for mobile sources and for progressing and monitoring progress for air pollution reduction through the state. It was also put in charge of doing AQM planning for the whole state and conducting research and analysis, which it did in collaboration with the University of California primarily and other institutions as well. So in addition to regulating pollution from mobile sources, CARB also works very closely with the air districts that were put together through the California Air Act of 1947. There are 35 of them in California today. And they do this to primarily monitor and enforce actions for stationary sources. CARB is also responsible for carrying out quick resolution through mutual settlement programs that work as an interface between violators and the district authorities to quickly come to resolution and settle on compensation for environmental discrepancies or violations. And this money that is then gathered by CARB is further spent into air quality management through the state, particularly in areas that are inhabited by vulnerable communities and the economically weaker sections. So CARB's overall experience has been fairly positive, and it is credited to reducing pollution from vehicular sources and mobile sources, particularly from the car fleet, as well as heavy duty vehicles by over 90% since 1967. It has also reduced black carbon in the atmosphere by around 90% and ground level ozone by around 60%. A very interesting fact is when the CARB was established in the year 1967, California had issued 186 smog alerts that year. And today, California really does not any longer need to issue those smog alerts until and unless there is a wildfire incident that the state has been a recipient to, unfortunately, over the past few years. But generally, the issue has really been tackled very successfully through CARB. My next example is that of collaboration between countries when it comes to air quality management and applying a transboundary approach in the international context. This example is from the European Union, where the Convention on the Long-Range Transport of Air Pollutants and the EU Clean Air Policies really form the bedrock for successful regional framework for controlling air pollution through a transboundary approach. The Convention for Long-Range Transport of Air Pollution is really the first convention that ever focused purely on air quality management. This came into being in the year 1979, and it helps facilitate exchanges and dialogues between key stakeholders, including researchers and government stakeholders as well, and also facilitates policy negotiations between member states. It has since the 1980s been extended by 8 more protocols that look at identifying specific measures to tackle specific pollutants. The convention has been credited with reducing air pollution by around 40 to 80% since its inception, and only just a couple of years back celebrated its 40th anniversary. The EU clean air policies that came into being in the early 2000s really are based on 2 directives under the EU law. The first one is called the EU Ambient Air Quality Directive that empowers the EU to establish air quality standards and also harmonize the methods for monitoring and assessing air quality progress in all member states. It also legally obliges EU member states to establish air quality management zones and agglomerations, which can be looked at as mini airsheds in a sense. And then it also mandates the member states to create air quality response plans for these agglomerations and zones, and then share these with the EU commissions and also with the public at large. As a result, creating a mechanism of transparency too. The next mechanism or directive that is vital towards EU's progress in tackling air pollution is the National Emission Reduction Commitments, which was previously known as National Emission Ceiling. This basically sets the individual reduction commitment for various member states. And also in the year 2016, it set forth a vision or an ambitious target of reducing air pollution, sort of the impact of air pollution on health by 50% compared to 2005 levels by 2030. This also requires member states to draw up actual programs that will then basically operationalize the air quality plans that were developed under the EU Ambient Air Quality Directives, the one I mentioned previously. And just a quick glance at the map on the right-hand side, this is data from 2019, would really show that vast areas of Europe now report good air quality. There are patches in northern Italy and in the Eastern European side that still do not comply with sort of the EU's legal limits, but they really have a successful mechanism of regional collaboration, and that is what I wanted to put forth here. Moving on quickly to closer home in Southeast Asia, there is a very interesting mechanism that has brought together all 10 countries of the ASEAN region to tackle a particular source of air pollution, that being forest clearing and burning. The issue of haze is of particular significance in this region that has occurred annually since the late 70s and early 80s, and particularly is generated from the forest fires in the Indonesian islands of Borneo and Sumatra that causes a problem for the whole region, and particularly so for Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. This has really been a diplomatic win for the region, where they have departed from an institutional culture of protecting sovereignty to come together and facilitate deeper cooperation on the issue of air pollution. There are, however, a lot of criticism of this agreement as well. The very fact that it lacks some enforcement mechanisms and strong dispute resolution instruments has meant that this agreement, which has really been a diplomatic success, has not really translated into successful air quality action or successfully reducing the haze in this region, as we have seen repeated incidents coming being recorded over the years, particularly so in the recent past in 2017 and 2019. But nevertheless, this gives a good picture of how countries can come together and tackle a particular source that affects the whole region. I'll now like to move on from international experiences and try to contextualize how some of this experience can be filtered into the Indian context. And as Dr. Sagnik has already put forth, that adopting an airshed mechanism in India really makes sense. I say this while acknowledging that the NCAP, the National Clean Air Program that came into being in the year 2019, is I think a really commendable start to India actually tackling air pollution holistically. It sets 20 to 30% reduction targets for particulate matter across more than 120 cities most affected by air pollution in the country. And this goes back to the point Dr. Arun was making previously, where he said, Delhi is not the complete story, right? There are lots of parts of India that suffer from deep air pollution. And through the World Bank's work in the Indo-Gangetic Plains, we have particularly seen that there are a number of cities in this region, more than 30 cities that suffer from deep air pollution issues. And as Dr. Sagnik pointed out from a state perspective, that a number of states in India have high pollution transport from other states or neighboring states. The same applies for cities as well, particularly in the Indo-Gangetic Plain. And the example that I show here will tell you that only up to 20 to 30% or 35% of the pollution in some of the most critically polluted cities in the Indo-Gangetic Plain actually emanates from the city itself. There are other peripheral areas, suburbs and rural areas within that state and other cities within the state that also contribute to pollution in these cities. There are also pollution contribution coming from other states. And in the Indian context, it is important to note that there is also an international dynamic to air quality management, which is particularly relevant for the Western states, northwestern states in Pakistan, and also in the east, where West Bengal shares its borders with Bangladesh. And we have also sort of seen scientific research emerge that talks about particularly dust pollution, come from the Middle East into Delhi and the other parts of Indo-Gangetic plains that are also leads to some episodic air pollution challenges for the region. But there are some green shoots in India that are already emanating, is what I can submit here, in terms of the fact that we have recently seen how the Finance Commission grants has allowed urban agglomerations and not just a single urban local body to actually act on air pollution. The Finance Commission actually incentivized the whole urban agglomeration to act together on air pollution, which is, I think, a welcome step. We have also seen the national government lead the way for formation of the Commission on Air Quality Management for the Delhi NCR region. And it is particularly important to note that they have also been made responsible for Delhi NCR, but also look at the adjoining regions and neighboring states. And I hope in all sincerity that this commission is able to bring together different states and different actors on the same table to address Delhi NCR's air quality challenges. And I think this could also provide clues for a good model for the rest of the country, where we can come up with different airsheds that could be managed with a transboundary approach towards air pollution management. And finally, CPCB in its Vision 2030 has also set aside special focus for airshed-based management in the coming years, which I also think is a welcome sign. That brings me to my concluding slide. And I think taking a cue from Dr. Sagnik's 5 points or agenda for clean air, I'd like to submit 6 considerations for operationalizing a transboundary approach for air quality management, which could be applicable for any country and even particularly so in the Indian context. I think the first and the foremost, the key factor is to actually delineate an airshed. And once we do delineate an airshed, we need to make sure that we understand fully the chemical transport, pollution transport, and the chemistry of pollutants in this region as well, and understand the air quality impacts to the region, and delineate an airshed in a way that we do not miss out on any key sources that affects this region. The second is setting science-based targets. I think it is important, very important to set long-term, mid-term, as well as short-term targets, because intermediary targets will keep us on our feet and help policymakers understand if their direction of travel is right or wrong, and then accordingly course correct. The third step that I want to put forward was the need to conduct or adopt a nested planning approach where you take into account all important administrative units, be it the urban local bodies, be it the urban agglomerations, even rural development institutions, and then at a state level and also at the national level. You need to bring all stakeholders together in creating an environment for a nested planning approach. And then you need to also integrate air quality actions with already existing sectoral plans. The government is already taking a lot of action, for example, in tackling climate change. So there is a big renewable energy and energy efficiency goal that India has put forward. How does that play or interplay with air quality targets? I think policymakers need to pay more attention to understand on how to integrate other sectoral targets and plans with the air quality plans. Now coming to the fourth point, intergovernment coordination and cooperation, I think is very important and needs to be the bedrock of delivering any transboundary air quality approach or airshed approach. Point number 5 is around a legal and regulatory framework, which I think is very important. And if our policies lack and if our regulations lack the bite of the law, it's very difficult to enforce them. And as a result, as we have seen, for example, and that's why I wanted to show it, in the case of the ASEAN agreement, a lack of regulatory or a legal authority or framework has really led to sort of more or less futile efforts. So it's very important to have a legal backing for any transboundary approach towards air quality management. Last but not the least, one needs to also be very cognizant of the financial viability of measures that need to be applied across an airshed, and also understand how this financing would be planned. And in this regard, also understanding the cost effectiveness and prioritization that Dr. Sagnik was also referring to of measures is very important, because at the end of the day, most middle income countries, India not being an exception, would operate with a limited budget. And we need to understand how best we use our money and finances to adopt better air quality management practices. So I'll end my presentation on that note. And once again, want to thank everyone listening in, and happy to take any questions or hear any responses. And happy World Environment Day once again. I'll sign off here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sayantan, for sharing the California model of smog control, emphasizing on the regional treaty of the Asian region for curbing the haze pollution, and thus ultimately signifying the success of the cohort measures that we require to deal with the poor air quality of the city. We'll be taking up all the questions after all the panelists have completed their speech. The next panelist for us for today's discussion is Dr. Sandeep, who is the Director, Scientist F at the Control of Pollution Division of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. He'll be discussing about the management of the air quality in the Delhi NCR region. So, Dr. Sandeep, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Kriti. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Indeed, sir.
Very good afternoon to everyone. Especially, I have been listening to all the panelists before me. And before that, I would like to just thank the organizer to giving us an opportunity to put our perspective, what is happening as far as Delhi is concerned. But having said that, my work has been made very easy by Satyam and Dr. Sagne, because they have covered a lot of things from a larger perspective and sharing the international aspects also, what is happening globally and how people are doing tackling the issue of air pollution. But what I will do is I will just try to put up a small slide and make it short. If you allow me, then I can make some 2-3 slides and I will skip many. So shall I share the slides?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you may.
Yeah, I think it must be visible.
Yes, it is.
So just going forward, like management of air quality, what exactly is happening as of today and what we see in future and what are the gaps we see per se in tackling this in a holistic way. In last 4 or 5 years, what has happened is basically based on the studies carried out in last 5-7 years. This source apportionment study, what generally is the guiding factor for preparing action plans, those has been taken into consideration. But if I broadly classify the sources, I take it in a city perspective, I can divide it into in situ and ex situ. This may be a new term, technical term, Sagnik and other people can put it differently. But when I say in situ, it is more to do with the within urban area, because since I am also associated with NCAP and we are finding it how to address this issue to the people who are going to implement, make them sensitized. So when we talk about in situ, we talk about within urban local bodies, which are more under the control of some authority who is regulating that particular sector, whether it is a vehicular, transport sector is there, when industrial, when we saw it is pollution control board, which looks after open waste burning. The municipal corporations are responsible, construction and other waste. These are all, some agencies are there who can respond and they can regulate, they are mandated to do that. Now, the efficacy of that system will work on the efficiency, what we target and what we achieved. When we talk about ex situ, it is which is coming from transboundary, we can say, or regional level, which is long distance, get transformed in the beyond our control within the urban local bodies. When we talk about NCR, like Delhi, so there are things which is influencing from outside the administrative boundary of Delhi. So we call them as a ex situ. And there again, although the same aspects and mandates are there with the various agencies, but they lack a coordination as issue is there. So that is second part. When we talk about long distance secondary pollutants, especially when we talk about PM 2.5, which has a traveling distance up to 1,000 kilometers, so various scientific studies has proved those things. So again, that issue is there, which is beyond control, and then to the local city level administration. When I say beyond control of the local administration, who are responsible for maintaining the air quality of the city. Now, if someone is something is coming beyond there, then there has to be a larger perspective, larger involvement of the stakeholders. Like pollutant discharge from a power plant can travel up to 1,000 kilometers. It all depends upon, again, meteorological conditions. Now, when we talk about Delhi per se, it has a very unique meteorological conditions. It has extreme winter, extreme summer, dust winds are there. It has a hilly terrain also. So a very complex one. It's very difficult to have meteorological conditions are one of the major factors which influence the city air quality. And having any modulation on these conditions are beyond control. So it's a very difficult task and it's a major challenge. Now, when I say this, Indo-Gangetic plain characteristics are there for Delhi. Sagnik has, and even Dr. Sarkar has explained those things. There are 30 to 40%. I just have highlighted Cyclone Tauktae, which came on 21st or 22nd May. It was very unique condition. Like when we has to analyze, everyone who is in Delhi, they must have experienced. 2 days, we had a very cool, clear climatic conditions. Air quality was good because of drizzling on continuous 42 hours, happening, good wind direction, good coefficient, ventilation coefficient, and everything. On 25th May morning, 6 o'clock, you had a dust storm, which was coming just behind that complete cleaning wave. And then the values went up very high, and it was very abrupt, like everything which was green suddenly became red and red and red everywhere. Those data suggest that yes, the meteorological conditions and transboundary, because these pollutants which were there for 2 days, 48 hours, or even to some area, the impact which was observed at the monitoring stations, it went up to 36 hours. Complete dust storm, vertical as well as horizontal. So there was nothing to do with that. It was more beyond the control. Having said that, this is only to highlight that, yes, there are certain things which are beyond our control, but then these needs long-term action plan, which needs to be again looked after how it has to be done. But there are many things which are under our control. And there we start doing scientific study to identify which are the things which are within our control and what are the action plans we need to take up. And there we have certain studies, especially I'm talking with reference to Delhi. 3-4 studies has been carried out in depth. And although their objectives and scope were varying, but overall the findings has very much supported in comprehensively making a action plan where the neighboring stakeholders has also been done, given some task. So sectoral and institutional specific action plans were prepared and those were done. But unfortunately, those action plans are in place, people are mandated, but there is no regulatory monitoring mechanism as far as CAP implementations are concerned. So when we say monitoring mechanism, it is that the prioritization, Sagnik has done a very good analysis of NCAP programs and then who are the stakeholders. The issue here, there also is same what we are facing, how to prioritize, how to identify which are dependent event, and the initial one and the precursory activities has to be taken up. So those are the things where we need to work out on scientifically based studies and evidences. Now, another part which is more aggressively looked after when September comes and people are directly facing it, the air pollution is not quantifiably felt, but it is visible. So visually, you can say that there is a air pollution problem. So that time we come out with graded response action plans are there, but those are again more of a responsive in nature. So something we predict and then we start implementing. It is for short term, site specific, but these are not a sustainable imbibing these practices into day-to-day activity. So these are some things which we have analyzed the present situation with the Delhi per se. Now, I will just share some of the data from the ground, which will reflect that how much we are contributing, which is controllable for within the city, and how much we need to look into, which comes, which needs an approach which Sagnik and Satyam both have said. We need to move toward airshed management, because that is when studies suggest that only 30 to 40% is contributed from the city. Then we need to look into how to tackle that 50% or 60%. These are estimates, but when we say 50, 60%, it may vary significantly, but then we have to accept that there is a good percentage of ex situ or outside contribution to the cities, especially in Indo-Gangetic belt. The numbers may be different for different predictions, but percentage-wise, if we say, there is a significant amount. But then how much we have, which we can contain within our own jurisdiction, and how much it is where we need a policy at a policy and involvement of all stakeholders in that airshed, so that those 40% or 50% is being addressed to at the source. Now, just if you see this, this is a data of 2018 to 20. The reason why we want to emphasize on 2020 is that is the best case scenario one can ever think of. Although I heard Dr. Sharma also saying that development is required, yes, but the 2020 scenario was extremely non-acceptable. If we look at, I will come to that 1 month phase where we had complete lockdown and what was the air quality status. Now, if we have closed down all our economical activity and everything, and if we are able to achieve the air quality what we intend, it makes sense that, okay, you stop everything. But even then, if you are not able to do, then we have to look into what is the best trade-off and look at it. So these are all scientific way of looking at it, but practically things may change because there are other factors one has to consider it, the achievability and acceptability by the society, and the trade-off between what we can do, what we can't do. So the, other factors come into picture. If you see this graph, you will find that the poor and the 2020 moderate days are high, which we call it acceptable, whereas 2018 there is only, if you see, 20% increase in that. Similarly, when we see the monthly trend of Delhi, you just look at the trend, it goes, and if you see the April month and May month, which had a more or less a complete lockdown last year also, and we had a good control this year also. If you see 18, 19 and 20, April and May, these are almost same, and there is a reduction in green, which is 2020. So even when we have complete lockdown, the concentration part has not that significantly reduced. So yes, anthropological and background has to be considered when we look into a bigger perspective. Similarly, these are again, but I can skip these grounds specifically just to cut short on time, because Sagnik and Dr. Sarkar has also highlighted, and these are from what we say from the ground, and they have done it from satellite. So both are concluding to the same points. Even if I go to the April 15 to May 15 comparative analysis, which is more to do with the acute lockdown period, the outcome is more or less same. What we do for the annual average and other this thing. A number of days has gone up. Green has acceptable days has gone up, whereas others, if you see, you will find that the 2021 is more or less again same. And you will appreciate that the activities definitely has come down, whether it is vehicular pollution on the street or anyway, it has come down significantly during this period, even in Delhi. So these are the experience what we have to look into, and this will call for further detailed studies and look into, because COVID has given us good background status also. These are the same. When we share this, one can find out very easily. Same numbers putting together. Now, when we see the comparison, there is hardly, these bar graphs will tell you that there is any change. Those changes are between poor and moderate. The dates are either way, it is the exchange are between moderate to poor. So these things we can skip. Now, coming back to that, what exactly is on ground being tackled at source within the city? These are the activities which has been identified and being implemented. The black ones are basically to target particulate matter of PM10 size, and the blue ones are basically to address PM2.5. There is a, when we talk about, there is a notion that electrical vehicles are good. Yes, as far as urban environment is concerned, electrical vehicles are good. But when we talk about it's basically airshed basis, we need to look into the matrix of energy, and we have to see that what is the non-renewable source, so that it is not contributing to the air pollution of the airshed. Now, these are the things which are available when we talk about XC2 management. These blue ones are again for PM2.5, and there are a lot of initiatives which has been taken up. Now, when we talk about, Dr. Sarkar mentioned, this is one point I just want to highlight. Having the experience, and we realize that we need to have a coordination, and there is no particular agency which is looking after. There were various committees, and they were doing ad hoc job, either through the instruction of Honorable NGT or Honorable Supreme Court. Things were just being, there was a lack of coordination and dedicated institution to deal with this. And for that only, this Commission on Air Quality Management in NCR and adjoining area has been brought in. And the whole idea here is to look into from airshed regional and comprehensive approach has to be there. There should be no like a scope for lack of coordination. Policy uniformity should be there. They have a lot of power to impose their own standards and everything. So suggest policy interventions based on various study. They have representations from all faculty, stakeholders, state governments, pollution control board, and they will be having their own monitoring, enforcement and R&D section. And this is what they have been given power, just to keep a short. With this only, the mass movement and public participation is key to any air quality improvement. With this, I just thank you. Thanks to the organizers for giving me an opportunity, and I will be open if any queries are there. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep, for highlighting various co-factors that are responsible for the pollution and highlighting a way out. Our next distinguished speaker between us is Honorable Mr. Justice Swatantra Kumar. Is Lordship still there? Perhaps due to technical glitch, we have lost Swatantra Kumar in this discussion. I'll just once again cross-check with Lordship. Lordship is joining again. He's having some technical issues at his end.
Take one or two questions.
All right.
Just save time. Just
All
to
right.
save.
I think Hemant sir, would you like to take up any questions from the?
Yeah, thank you, Kriti. Just we'll utilize this time for getting some questions answered by the panel. There are many questions, but I think I would like to take more relevant questions which are of general nature, which can be of more benefit to the society at large. So the one question being posed by one gentleman, Arindam Malek, is, if pollutions of other states bordering the pollution in Delhi by a factor as high as 50%, why this point isn't the same for some of the other states as well? What collective measures are being taken addressing this situation? I think we can pose this question to Sayantan.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Hemant. It's a very interesting question, and how I'd like to see answer or respond to this is, we have to look at specific instances. I think we cannot blanketly say that other states are not affected by air pollution from neighboring states. Like Dr. Sagnik had already shown in his presentation, there is a connection between or a transport of air pollutants from one state to another. The instance for Delhi is particularly significant because it is landlocked. It is surrounded by such topography that makes it difficult for air pollution to escape once it enters Delhi's sort of domain, air domain. And there are other meteorological and topographical factors that makes the case for Delhi particularly difficult. So while the question is very interesting, I'd like to sort of caution that there are instances where there are other states that are deeply affected by pollution arriving from other states. And in this light also, as I showed in my presentation, particularly in terms of cities, we do see similar sort of high level of transport of pollutants from within a single state as well. So I think we need to take up sort of this line of thinking in a different way, where we look at particular instances or particular examples and then try to correlate with the topographical and meteorological factors, as well as the pollution sources that are within a particular state and its neighboring state, including downward direction as well. Yeah.
The next question is to Sagnik. What would be the challenges and benefits if we use high resolution grids, that is a ½ kilometer instead of 1 by 1 kilometer, which was common? Is it necessary to have a standard size and grid shape for the airsheds for EI and SA source apportionment studies? Are there any studies region-wise relating to health and pandemic, especially children? Please inform us. So Sagnik probably is the best guy for this. Professor Sagnek? I think either he's muted or... So we can go to the next question. Is there any link between poor air quality and worse health outcomes from COVID-19? Dr. Arun Sharma.
Yeah, theoretically, yes. If the pollution levels are bad, I mean the air quality is really bad, then the probability of improvement of a person suffering from COVID-19 reduces, as the particulate matter are further aggravating the already damaged lungs. So the outcome can be. But of course, there are no definite studies conducted to prove that poor air quality is responsible for worse outcomes. And secondly, historically, it can be said that if people have been exposed in the past to poor air quality and they have, as a result, suffered from comorbidities, like we know that hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and chronic respiratory illnesses are because of air pollution. So people who have been exposed chronically to air pollution have these comorbidities. And once they have the comorbidities and if they suffer from COVID-19, then the outcome is obviously going to be worse for them. But this is only a retrospective thought. Prospectively, we cannot say anything about it. I think that answers the question.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. The next question that we can go to is from Tanya Gupta. Throughout the discussion, we can conclude that the contribution towards air pollution is much more from the urban, suburban zones than cities. As we have the policy of the polluter pays principle, but the implementation of it is not very restrictive. What could be the possible hindrance? And can it be anyhow compensated with any green reward system or similar policies? I would like to pose this question to Dr. Sandeep from Central Pollution Control Board.
Yeah, it's a very valid one. The observations are very valid. Basically, for air pollution, when we talk about transboundary and urban or semi-urban or a regional one where you have industrial emissions which may contribute to urban cities, what are the incentives being? What I understand that, is there any regulatory provisions or incentivization for improvement of that? Yes, like there are various schemes being launched and those are being under consideration. One of them is the emission trading scheme, which is have given very good encouraging result, especially when we talk about Surat, and other cities have also come up to adopt those, whether it is from West Bengal, they have shown interest, Punjab has shown interest, other cities in Gujarat has shown interest. It basically talks about a complete bubble concept where the total load is maintained, but it encourages people to switch over to cleaner and reduce pollution discharge. Apart from that, as far as implementation is concerned, even what happens, basically the approach, once we take up a airshed based management for air quality, then carrying capacity and assimilating capacity, which are the core to the management of any airshed, has to be worked out. And those data has to be populated and worked out to come out some incentivization on these aspects. As of today, what is happening is there is a standard which is uniformly concentration based. So if till you are meeting those standard of emission, you are allowed to operate. But cumulatively in a given airshed, the total load may not be able to be absorbed by the environment and it may have an impact. So those are the things where we are also looking for load-based standards. And there are tools and we have to look into how fast we can adopt those things. Thank you.
We posed a question to Dr. Sagnik, but unfortunately at that time he was unable to mute his microphone. but he can do it now. So the same question I'm going to pose to him again. So what would be the challenges, Dr. Sagnik, what would be the challenges and benefits if we use high resolution grids as half kilometer instead of 1 by 1 kilometer, which was common? Is it necessary to have a standard size and grid shape for the airsheds for emission inventory and source apportionment studies? And are these studies region-wise relating health and pandemic, especially children? Please inform. Dr. Sagnik.
Yeah, sorry, actually there's a problem with microphone. Yeah, so I think there are three different components of this question. So first, in terms of the grids, I will tell this that when you talk about urban regions, having information at finer resolutions, particularly for emissions from different sectors, definitely helps. But if you talk about regional emission sources, then even coarse resolution emission information is also quite adequate. So that is why we need a kind of mixed model where you generate this information at very high resolution for the urban sectors and then kind of link it to the overall regional emission sectors. However, I must mention that if you are interested in understanding the efficacy of the intervention measures, we should strategically also have located our ground-based monitors. I mean, Central Pollution Control Board and the ministry is expanding. In fact, our current monitoring system has significantly improved after 2016. And as we speak, every day new monitoring sites are coming up. So which actually will be very critical. Then you talk about health impacts studies in India. There are many studies actually which are available. Actually, I will say that there are two categories of studies. One is the one type of studies are part of the global burden of disease initiatives. In India, actually, this is led by PHFI and ICMR, where state level disease burden, attributable to air pollutions and various other risk factors are calculated. But I must mention this to the audience that while the global burden of disease approach is a uniform approach which can be applied for multiple countries, multiple states, however, we should keep in mind that this approach is based on mass. And I think Dr. Sandeep also mentioned this, and this is very important, that in India, PM 2.5 or PM 10 composition varies so much depending on the sources that ultimately we should evolve our own exposure risk functions. And I'm sure Professor Sharma will also agree to this. We have been discussing this for quite a long time, that we should start using our own data and come up with our own risk functions. And there are also few studies already exist where it has been shown what is the level of impact, not just for children, because the question was specifically for children. So yes, there are few studies focused on children, but also for the adult population. So overall, depending on what we want to actually address, our air quality management plan has to be tailor-made in that sense, in terms of resolution, in terms of information and all.
Thank you, Dr. Sagnik. A question posed by, do we have time, Preeti?
I think we'll move forward because we're already running late.
All right, we can take the rest of the questions if there is time at the end.
Right, indeed. So now I request our chairman, Dr. Nankishore Garji, founder and chief advisor of Maharaja Agrisane Technical Education Society and chancellor, Maharaja Agrisane University, Himachal Pradesh, to give away the concluding remarks to today's panel discussion. A brief about Sir, that he's been a significant source of inspiration and motivation for all of us in achieving the different goals and aims of the society and of the Maharaja Agrisane family. He's an eminent figure amongst the masses, and he's a true anthropologist who's always contributed selflessly to the society in building the nation towards a better tomorrow. I request Sir to give away the address to his words of wisdom. Over to you, Sir.
Namaskar.
नमस्कार जी, बाकी नमस्कार।
जस्टिस एसके सिंह साहब जुड़े हैं मेरे हिसाब से, 5 लोग आप साइंटिस्ट हैं, रिसर्च करते हैं और पूरे देश के लिए चिंता करते हैं, चाहे वो हेमंत कौशल जी हों, सरकार जी हों, संदीप जी हैं, ये साहब हैं, अरुण शर्मा जी हैं। जस्टिस स्वतंत्र कुमार शायद जुड़ नहीं पाए। आज के लिए जो टॉपिक आप लोगों ने रखा है वर्ल्ड एनवायरनमेंट डे पर, बहुत ही सामयिक है, बहुत आवश्यक है और बहुत आज इस पर हम सब चिंता भी व्यक्त करते हैं। तो मैं दिल्ली में लगभग सारी उम्र दिल्ली में ही रहा हूँ। दिल्ली के ही पॉल्यूशन को यदि मैं एक मानूं तो दिल्ली को पॉल्यूशन को 1970-75 तक पॉल्यूशन बहुत नहीं था, ना के बराबर था। और उसके बाद बिगड़ते बिगड़ते 2000 आते आते एयर पॉल्यूशन बहुत बढ़ गया। आज सारे एयर की बात की आप लोगों ने, वाटर पॉल्यूशन उससे ज्यादा खराब, और इससे ज्यादा हमारे जो एमिशंस हैं इलेक्ट्रॉनिक में मैग्नेटिक रेज की, इलेक्ट्रिकल हाई वोल्टेज की, मेरे देखते देखते दिल्ली की सारी सबसे स्ट्रॉन्ग जिसको मानते थे चील गायब हो गई, गुरैया गायब हो गई। और दिल्ली का 1400 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर एरिया, जिसमें से 1950 के आसपास मुश्किल से 200 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर में आबादी थी, धीरे धीरे ये आबादी बढ़ते बढ़ते 1100 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर में पहुंच गई। यमुना जी को मैंने समाप्त होते हुए देखा। 1975 तक यमुना में नहाना एक फंक्शन होता है, जैसे लोग आज भी गंगा में हैं। नजरबत ड्रेन को मैंने देखा, मुश्किल से 20 फुट चौड़ा और 20 फुट गहरा था, जो आज 200 फुट से ज्यादा चौड़ा हो गया और शायद 100 फुट से ज्यादा गहरा हो गया। और 17 नालों की बात सुनते सुनते मैं भी 1972 में जब एमएससी पास आउट किया, उसके बाद थोड़ा सा सरकार में कहीं ना कहीं रहा हूँ, काउंसलर भी रहा हूँ, एमएलए भी रहा हूँ, और सब चीजों को मैंने देखा कि इम्प्लीमेंटेशन पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू आके सारी चीजें रुकती है। रिसर्च बहुत होती है, योजनाएं बहुत बनती है, बजट भी बहुत रखा जाता है, आउटकम देखें। मैंने जब देखा कि सबसे ज्यादा दिल्ली में यदि 2-3 नाम गिनूं जो पॉलिटिकली जिनकी विल पावर थी, जिन्होंने कुछ किया, तो आज की पीढ़ी को मालूम भी नहीं होगा, आपको भी शायद नहीं मालूम हो कि आदित्यनाथ झा दिल्ली के एलजी थे 1970s में, नहीं याद ज्यादातर। जगमोहन जी उस समय कमिश्नर लेवल पे थे और विजय कुमार मल्होत्रा 67 to 72। दिल्ली के अंदर एक ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन देखी थी लोगों ने, हमने भी देखी थी, हम कॉलेज यूनिवर्सिटी जाते। उसके बाद जगमोहन जी ने 75 के आसपास एक दिल्ली को बदल करके दिखाया, बहुत बड़ा परिवर्तन ला के दिखाया। 1980 में एशियन गेम्स के नाम पर लेके आए। तो बाकी मैंने पॉलिटिकल लोग में राजनीति में रहा हूँ लगातार 30-40 साल से, चुनाव भी लड़े हैं, लड़ाए हैं। विल पावर नहीं है लोग, विल पावर ना होने से लगभग एवरेज 1.5 साल में चुनाव है। 1975 के बाद दिल्ली में हर 1.5 साल में, अभी भी आप गिने तो 2013 में विधानसभा, फिर 14 में लोकसभा, 15 में विधानसभा, 17 में कॉरपोरेशन, और फिर इसका साइकिल दूसरा शुरू। काम तो हो नहीं पा रहे। मैं आपको 3 उदाहरण दे सकता हूँ। जब हम सरकार बनी, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आदेश दिया कि आप दिल्ली के अंदर वाटर पॉल्यूशन के लिए तुरंत 16 सीवेज ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट बनाए, कहीं से पैसा लेके आए। 600 करोड़ रुपए का खर्च, मदन लाल खुराना जी को आदेश हुआ, और ये आदेश था कि आपको 1.5 साल में बनाने हैं। 1.5 साल में बन गए। क्या हेमंत जी, आप जान के दुख होगा आपको, उनमें से 3 प्लांट बनने के बाद आज तक चालू नहीं। पैसा लग गया, योजना बनी, इंप्लीमेंट हुई, परंतु आउटकम क्या हुआ? फिर एक आदेश आया जस्टिस बीएन कृपाल का, सीएनजी पर ले आओ, सब सारी इंडस्ट्री को बंद कर दो, एनसीआर की बंद कर दो, सीएनजी सीएनजी सीएनजी। और राम नायक ने देश से विदेश से लाके सीएनजी लगा दिया। बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट पहले 3-4 साल नजर आया, नहीं आया। तो मेट्रो हमने शुरू की 1996 में, तो हमें सबने बताया कि आप ये जो मास ट्रांसपोर्ट का ले आएंगे तो क्रांति हो जाएगी, सड़कों से भीड़ घट जाएगी, पोल्यूशन कम हो जाएगा। 23,000 करोड़ रुपए की योजना बनाई, और जो 22 समय पर इम्प्लीमेंट हो गई है। 2021 तक होनी थी, ये कोविड वगैरह नहीं होता शायद पूरी हो गई। तो सड़कों की भीड़ तो नहीं घटी, क्योंकि हमारी समस्याएं जिस तेजी से बढ़ती हैं, सॉल्यूशन उस तेजी से हम नहीं दे पा रहे। और सॉल्यूशन एक ही है मेरे हिसाब से। हिम्मत लोग नहीं करते कहने की कि दिल्ली की आबादी जो 2-2.5 करोड़ हो गई, जो 1950 में 10 लाख थी, आज विश्व की किसी भी राजधानी में, अब सारे ही विदेशों में खूब डाटा भी दे रहे थे, कोलंबिया से लेकर कैलिफोर्निया और पूरे यूरोप का, वर्ल्ड में कोई ऐसी राजधानी नहीं है जहाँ होलसेल ट्रेड भी हो, इंडस्ट्री भी हो, छोटी इंडस्ट्री भी हो, और सब कुछ हो, और झुग्गी झोंपड़ी की 30% आबादी हो, जो नालों के किनारे, रेलवे लाइन के किनारे रहते हो, जहाँ कोई सुविधाएं ना हो। डिफिकेशन का भी मोदी जी ने हिम्मत करके पूरे देश में किया क्रांति, परंतु आज भी कहने की हिम्मत कोई नहीं करता कि दिल्ली के अंदर पहले दिल्ली की आबादी केवल अब ये राजधानी रहे, यहाँ जितने फालतू काम है वो सब यहाँ से शिफ्ट किए जाए एक फेज्ड मैनर में। एक योजना बनी थी कि दिल्ली के बॉर्डर के नॉर्थ और वेस्ट के साथ साथ 3 किलोमीटर ग्रीन बेल्ट जो है बन गई थी, उसके अंदर इतने डेंसली पेड़ लगाए जाएं कि जो आपके साउथ ईस्ट एशिया, राजस्थान, जो भी हवाएं आती हैं, रेत आता है, वो दिल्ली में ना आ सके। बहुत अच्छी योजना है, कोई बहुत बड़ा काम भी नहीं था, पर उसके साथ किसान को इंसेंटिव नहीं दिया आपने। जिसके 3 किलोमीटर में खेत आ गए, जो पेड़ लगाएगा वो खेती नहीं कर पाएगा, तो उसके लॉस को कौन भरपाई करेगा। पूरे शहर की रक्षा के लिए योजना अच्छी बनी, वो एलिमेंट हमने नहीं डाला कि इन लोगों को हम कंपनसेट करें बाय वे ऑफ कैश पर फसल के हिसाब से कुछ तय कर दे, ताकि वो लोग पेड़ अधिक लगाएंगे तो उससे अंदर कंजर्वेशन होगा, पानी का भी होगा, हवाएं भी ठीक नहीं हुआ। फिर एक बने सीईटीपी, जितने इंडस्ट्रियल एरिया सब में कॉमन एफ्लुएंट ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट लगाए थे, बड़ा खर्चा किया। एक भी सीईटीपी, जो आप लोग सारे जुड़े हुए हैं इस चीज से, एक भी दिल्ली का सीईटीपी मैं चैलेंज करके कह रहा हूँ आज एफिशिएंटली नहीं चल रहा 50% उस पर भी। ऐसा तो लग रहा है दिल्ली के लोगों का, टैक्स पेयर्स का। फिर स्लम कॉलोनीज, अनऑथराइज कॉलोनीज, सफाई टैक्स लगता था, अब नहीं लगे, क्यों पॉलिटिकल लोग केवल वोट की बात करते हैं। तो दिल्ली की आबादी 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा हैव नॉट्स की हुई, जो देते कुछ नहीं, लेना सब कुछ चाहते हैं। उनके बारे में कोई पॉलिटिकल आदमी तो बोलेगा नहीं, उसे वोट चाहिए। अब इनको आप लोग जो टेक्नोक्रेट्स हैं, जो रिसर्चर्स हैं, वो भी ज्यादा नहीं बोल पाएंगे खुल के, क्योंकि बॉसेस नाराज ना हो जाए किसी भी पार्टी। सॉल्यूशन कब आएंगे? आखिर लॉकडाउन में यदि सब चीजें ठीक हो सकती हैं तो लॉकडाउन इज नॉट ए सोल्यूशन। आखिर दिल्ली का आर्थिक पहिया भी चलना चाहिए, लोग भूखे ना मरे, अदरवाइज क्राइम बढ़ जाएंगे, दूसरी चीजें बढ़ेंगी। तो पहले हमारा जो, मैं साइंस का स्टूडेंट होकर भी 5 तत्व तो कहने में झिझक भी आती है, वायु, जल, पृथ्वी, आकाश, अग्नि इत्यादि। उनमें से 3 तो हमने बिगाड़ दिया। आज धरती हमारी सारी पोल्यूटेड होगी, सारे पेस्टिसाइड डाल के, सारे आर्टिफिशियल मैन्योर डाल के धरती के अंदर जहर हमने डाल दिया। पानी उसके कारण जहरीला हो गया। वाटर बॉडी ज्यादा हो, नदियों के ऊपर से हवा जाती थी तो हवा साफ हो जाती थी, और उनमें ऑक्सीडेशन होता था पानी का, जिसके कारण से जलचर को लाभ मिलता था। अब ये सब चीजों में बचपन में देखते थे, नदी में नहाने के बाद एक मुट्ठी लेके निकलता था आदमी उसकी, ये उसके कारण से कोई पोल्यूशन हुआ है। नदी के अंदर थूकना तक वर्जित होता था। नंगे नहाने के ऊपर भगवान कृष्ण ने कहा था जब नदी यमुना किनारे के, ये नहीं होना चाहिए। हमने इन सबको देवता माना, परंतु नई शिक्षा पद्धति ने मैकाले के कारण हमने अपने देवताओं को भी देवता नहीं मानते, उनको भी एक साधारण नदी नाले मान लिया, और सब चीजों को स्वयं नष्ट कर रहे हैं। फिर उनको फिर बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं, करोड़ों रुपया खर्च करने के बाद भी सोल्यूशन नहीं है। सोल्यूशन तो केवल इसी में है, अधिक से अधिक पेड़ लगाएं, पेड़ को देवता समझे। तुलसी को देवता क्यों मानते थे? कल बाबा रामदेव ने करके दिखाया। कहना एक हाथ में आप ये अपना फोन ले लें, दूसरे हाथ को मैं दबा के दिखाता हूँ इसकी एनर्जी नेगेटिव इसमें कैसे आ रहा है, चैलेंज करके होकर, और इसके अंदर 2 तुलसी के पत्ते इसके खोल में डाल के उसके बाद आपकी एनर्जी दूसरी आ रही है। इस सब चीजों पर हम मानने को अभी तैयार नहीं है। हमने पढ़ लिया सारा इंग्लिश मीडियम, और जो मैकाले वाली एजुकेशन सिस्टम को हमने फॉलो किया है, उसके कारण से हम ना भारतीय रह पाए, ना पूरी तरह विदेशी बन पाए। जेसी बोस ने शुरू सिद्ध कर दिया था कि पेड़ भी हमारी तरह फीलिंग रखते हैं, इनको भी गमी खुशी होती है, अच्छा गाना गाने से इनकी ग्रोथ बढ़ती है। या आइंस्टीन ने चीजों को माना, भारत के विदेशी वैज्ञानिकों ने माना, परंतु हम अभी अपनी उसी घिसी पिटी जो पिछले 150 साल से चीजें चल रही है, शायद अब बदल जाए। न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी आने से बच्चों को कुछ हाथ से सिखाने की बात आ जाए, एग्जामिनेशन ना हो, ऐसा एक वर्ग तैयार कर दिया कि इम्तिहान ही ना हो, 1 करोड़ लोग 12वीं का इम्तिहान नहीं देंगे, तो आप साइंटिस्ट कैसे बनेंगे, कैसे इंजीनियर बनेंगे, कैसे डॉक्टर्स बनेंगे, किस मेथड से एडमिशन होंगे, कोई चिंता नहीं। केवल आज का लाभ देखना, आज की सोचने वाली जनरेशन और नेता हमने पैदा किए हैं। इसमें परिवर्तन आना चाहिए। एनवायरमेंट डे आज हमने 5 जून को भी मनाया है, जुलाई में भी हम अपना भारतीय मनाएंगे। डे तो रोज हो गए, माता का डे, पिता का डे, ये डे वो डे। जो चीज नॉर्मल होनी चाहिए, सहज होनी चाहिए, कि हमारे जीवन का हिस्सा होनी चाहिए, उसको अब हम साल में 1 दिन मना के इतिश्री ना समझे। हम अपने आप को, पर्यावरण की रक्षा का मतलब है प्रकृति की रक्षा। प्रकृति और समष्टि सब एक हैं। प्रकृति ठीक रहेगी, हम ठीक हैं। प्रकृति नाराज होगी तो कहीं टुकौटे आएगा, कहीं पर यास आएगा, कहीं पर कोरोना आएगा। ये सारी छेड़छाड़ है। जितना छेड़छाड़ ज्यादा करेंगे उतना ही वो ज्यादा रिएक्ट करेगी। प्रकृति रिएक्ट है। जंगलों में आग लग रही है, 6-6 महीने बुझ नहीं रही। अब ये सारी चीजें आपने बताई थी डाटा से। सॉल्यूशन इसके आप केवल रिसर्च बेस, आप तो इंडिकेशन दे सकते। सॉल्यूशन हर व्यक्ति को करना होगा, हर व्यक्ति को जागरूक होना पड़ेगा। ज्यादा कानून बनाने से समस्याओं का हल नहीं होता। कितने ही एक्ट बना ले, कितने ही हमने नेशनल ग्रीन ट्रिब्यूनल बना दिया, जस्टिस स्वतंत्र कुमार ने बहुत बड़े बड़े कठिन कठोर निर्णय दिए। इम्पैक्ट दिल्ली में आज की तारीख में जो सिचुएशन है, यहाँ स्वस्थ व्यक्ति रह नहीं सकता। हम 3 हॉस्पिटल चला रहे हैं। महाराजा अग्रसेन हॉस्पिटल बिल्कुल शकूर बस्ती साइडिंग पंजाबी बाग में है। सबसे ज्यादा नियोनेटल, बच्चा पैदा होने के बाद 100 में से 80 बच्चों को पीलिया हो रहा है, सांस की बीमारी हो रही है, हमें नजर आ रही है, परंतु हम क्या कर पाए। जितने आप लोग साइंटिस्ट हैं, आप अपना खूब मेहनत कर रहे हैं, खूब बता रहे हैं, लोगों को जगा रहे हैं, सरकारों को बता रहे हैं, पर सरकारों में जैसे आज मुख्यमंत्री आ गए हैं, जैसे लोग आ गए हैं जिनको केवल आज की चिंता है, ज्यादा अगले चुनाव की चिंता है, उनके भरोसे देश ठीक नहीं हो सकता। देश को जागना होगा, देश के नागरिकों को जानना होगा, अपना भला देखना होगा। मुझे बिजली फ्री मिल जाए या पानी फ्री मिल जाए, मैं उसमें वोट दूंगा, तो फिर ना पर्यावरण बचेगा और ना हमारा जीवन सही ढंग से बच पाएगा। इसलिए सब लोगों से आज के दिन हम संकल्प लें कि अधिक से अधिक पेड़ लगाएंगे, अधिक से अधिक प्रकृति की रक्षा करेंगे, अपने जीवन को सरल बनाएंगे, सहज बनाएंगे, ज्यादा कंफर्ट्स में नहीं जाएंगे। अपना एसी चला के बाहर गर्म और गंदी हवाएं फेंक कर प्रकृति को तो या एनवायरमेंट को हम खराब कर रहे हैं। जनरेटर चलाए ना चलाए इसके ऊपर बहस होती है, जनरेटर बंद कर दिए जाए इसके ऊपर आदेश होते हैं। अरे बिजली सबको सुचारू रूप से 24/7 मिले, उसके लिए कॉस्ट देनी पड़ेगी। कॉस्ट देनी पड़ेगी तो जनरेटर की आवश्यकता नहीं पड़ेगी। अच्छा, जनरेटर क्यों चाहिए? बैकअप के लिए चाहिए, वो केवल हॉस्पिटल की जरूरत होना चाहिए। मैं थोड़ी कड़वी बात करने का स्वभाव है, क्योंकि दिल्ली में 50 साल मैंने राजनीतिक जीवन में और 70 साल की आयु है तो पूरी दिल्ली में बिताई है। और दिल्ली एक ऐसा शहर है जहाँ पर कोई इसको अपना नहीं मानता, सब यहाँ आते हैं, सब इससे कुछ न कुछ लेना चाहते हैं, परंतु दिल्ली किसी की नहीं है। कैसे दिल्ली का दुर्भाग्य है, दिल्ली को अपना मानने वाला कोई नहीं, दिल्ली में आने के बाद जाना कोई नहीं चाहता, और दिल्ली को केवल हम खराब करने पे तुले हुए हैं। कृपया पूरे देश की या विश्व की तो चिंता हम कर ही रहे हैं, अपनी दिल्ली की भी चिंता हम करें। मैं अपने रवि गुप्ता जी का, रजनी मल्होत्रा ढींगरा जी का और कीर्ति जोहरी और ये सब लोग जो मेहनत करके कार्यक्रम पिछले 1.5 साल में इन्होंने खूब कार्यक्रम किए हैं। मुझे खुशी है कि कम से कम हम अपना दायित्व निभा रहे हैं और अपने जितना कुछ कर सकते हैं उससे थोड़ा ज्यादा करने की और कोशिश करें। यही मेरा आप लोगों से अनुरोध है। आप सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जो हमारे आग्रह पर, हमारे अनुरोध पर आपने जुड़े, अपना समय दिया। और नॉर्मल चीजें होंगी तो हम कभी अपने कैंपस में भी आप लोगों को बुलाएंगे, थोड़ा सा सम्मान देंगे कि आप अच्छे लोग हैं, अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं और दूसरे के लिए जीने वाले लोग हैं। ऐसे लोगों को मेरा
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप।
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Indeed, sir, we need a strong will and we need to be an informed citizen. And that is also required, that is also one of the viable solutions to deal with the air quality of Delhi. Indeed. Thank you so much, sir. We are very glad to have between us Justice Swatantra Kumar, who was who has served as a successful former chairperson of National Green Tribunal. Though sir needs no introduction, but just a bit of him that during his successful tenure of judgeship, sir has been instrumental in delivering several landmark judgments during his tenure, ranging from the cleaning of the river Ganga as well as the Yamuna, the cleaning of the lakes, the air pollution, Himalayan glaciers, anything that related to forest and the natural ecosystem of India, nothing was left untouched by the National Green Tribunal under his tenure. So introduced and encouraged a cumulative practice of discussion that involved all the stakeholders in the process of dispensation of environmental justice in the society. The tribunal managed to deliver a series of landmark judgments under his leadership. And to quote just a few of them, that was the capital ban that was declared on all the old vehicles that were older than for more than 15 years in the city of Delhi. Then the ban on the plastic items of less than 50 micron thickness in Delhi because of all the harmful impacts they had on the animal life, on the seers, as well as on the environmental ecosystem of the Delhi. And then ultimately, which is also my favorite, that was a legendary order of making Amarnath Cave a silent zone, which is indeed very, very important to secure the sensitive ecology of the cave. Sir, it is indeed an honor to have you amongst us. We apologize for making the program a little late. It was indeed a deliberate discussion, so it was an inadvertent delay on our part. Over to you, sir. So you need to unmute yourself, sir. Lordship. Lordship, Lordship, you need to unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And please, I have a very short time at hand. I thank the organizers for having ventured upon such an important topic and bringing their air quality Delhi to a subject of discussion at this level. You have experts nationally and internationally. So compliments to all of you. I would just say a few words to tell you that, we are the people who are living in gas chambers. I think the people of Delhi deserve a compliment to having survived for years together with this ambient air quality, with this kind of so I wish to say is this, that I would, we passed various orders. We sort of did a lot of, there are contributors, whether you talk of construction, whether you talk of waste burning, whether you talk of, vehicular pollution, whether you talk of industrial pollution or the others who are. So
Raj sir has introduced you, sir. We're waiting for you.
You'll just have to please. I'm so sorry.
Just High Court and the Chairperson of National Green Tribunal. He has been bestowed several awards. I must say that particularly his work at NGT has had a profound impact and introduced for the first time the practice of a consultative process of stakeholders.
I believe that sir had some other engagement that was scheduled at 6. Sir is busy with that. So we can proceed with the event. We can now wrap up with a vote of thanks to be delivered by Dr. Praveen Kumar Gupta, who is the head of the Department of Law. Sir, I request you to please deliver the vote of thanks to the audience today.
Namaskar to everyone. my best wishes on the 48th World Environment Day, celebration of which started on 5th June 1974. And this is a program celebrated every day under UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. First of all, I am thankful to Almighty Shaktiman Paramatma that to bless me and my family members to get recover from deadly air pollutant, which is discussed today, that COVID-19, as it is so called. So it's my luck that I am with you all dignitaries and to provide me these opportunities to have interaction with you all. Here just I would like that as I am the last speaker, so it's my humble duty to make say some quotes of the dignitaries that love the earth as you would love yourself. A quote by John Denver. Then greatest threat to our planet is that someone else will, that someone else will save it. And Robert Swan. So this is a very important quote that we as a human being and always try to transfer our responsibility to others. That's the big problem. So thank you very much. Then my heartfelt thanks to Justice Swatantra Kumar, though out of his so busy schedule and busy time that spared a few moments for us to bless us. My heartfelt thanks to Justice S.K. Singh, Judicial Member NGT, and due to paucity of time, I would not take much time, that all the members of today's panel discussion so beautifully and so excellently. So no one, you can say you can't give number to anyone that 1, 2, 3. And I would like to say like this, and made this program a very big success. And heartfelt thanks to our guardian, I would like to say that Dr. Nand Kishore Garg-ji, who is founder and chief advisor of our society parent organization. And he is always ready to bless us and give permission to conduct such programs, without which that we would not be able to interact with you all. And then my heartful thanks to Professor Dr. S.K. Garg-ji, Director General. And I can say that no words can explain his role in the institution. And then Director Sir and Professor Ravi Kumar Gupta ji, he is really a Karma Yogi and works day and night. And I would like to say that he works like that neither he will sleep and nor he will allow to sleep for the sake of the institution. And
thank you, Dr.
Then my heartfelt thanks to Professor G.P. Govil ji, and that who always mark his presence whenever he is called for the sake of the institution. And today he is also present. My heartfelt thank you, sir. My heartfelt thanks to all the trustees and especially Secretary Shri Rajneesh Gupta ji, who is always present for even with a single short notice. So I'm very thankful to you, sir. Then I am thankful to Senior Professor, Head of the Department of Business Administration, and also IQAC cell in charge of our institution, MEMS. And he is very nice and very sincere. So with his presence, that thank you very much, sir. Then my heartfelt thanks to Principal of the department, Professor Rajni Malhotra Dhingra. And just I would like to say that really she is a woman empowered during this corona time, and leaving no stone unturned, and to bring the department to a high level. So my heartfelt thanks to all the heads of the departments and my dear colleagues and faculty from our sister concerns and the student coordinators, and with apology, my heartfelt thanks to one and all who is present or participated in the program and whose name I could not call here. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot for making this program success. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. Before we wrap up today's program, I request everyone to please stand up for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा, तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तव जय गाथा, जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great evening. Good night.
Thank you.